This program is brought to you by thepodcastfactory.com.
Hey there, it's Michelle, and I want to help you to live an epic story lifestyle. So, I'd like for you to do me a favor. Go over to epicstorylifestyle.com/live life to grab a free copy of my Hacks for Living an Epic Story Lifestyle checklist. Thanks.
Welcome back, Epic Story Livers, to another show with your host, your guide, your mentor, the lovely Michelle Spiva. How are you?
Oh, I'm fine, thank you. You know, I'm going to only focus on the part that says I'm lovely. That's the only part I heard.
Oh, you know what? I blew it. I should have said the foxy Michelle Spiva, right?
Yes, you remembered. Oh my gosh, thank you. I am a fox hog. Are you? Oh my gosh. I you know what? I just love that. And I could go on talking about it. But today, and for you guys listening, we're talking about a show we did a couple of weeks ago where I asked if you were, that I proclaimed I am a fox hog and why I think you should be too. So that's what Mr. JR is referring to there. JR, are you a fox hog? No?
So it really started more this year than ever, but it wasn't called a fox hog when I started. When I started, it was called being a Renaissance man, and it was I can't remember this guy's name. Oh, Ty Lopez. Everybody hates him. Some people love him, but he talked to me about being a Renaissance man and knowing some music, some art, having different kinds of knowledge, and that's how I ended up reading that book, Curious, because if not, I would have just been reading business books last year. So yes, the long way around is I'm becoming a fox hog this year.
I think it's great. And Renaissance Man, it has more finesse to it. So if you'd like to go by that moniker, I'll be happy to call you that.
Yeah, sounds sophisticated.
What do you have?
Yeah, what do you have for us today?
I want to get on a soapbox and then get back off of it for just a minute. So just bear with me. Today, dearly beloved, we are gathered here for me to talk about my love-hate relationship with the internet. I love the internet. I think I might have a slight addiction to it, and therefore I hate the internet. And why is that? It is because since 1998, when it really started coming out for, people, if you really think about that, the average person's interaction with the internet, anybody over the age of 2, it has taken on a different thing. For 18 years, almost 20, we have been interacting with this thing that broke down barriers, distance, and even time so that everybody can interact. And one of the horrible things about it, because I could talk about all the great stuff. I mean, it is the way by which I make my living, and it has helped me build a lot of friendships and relationships. So I'll never discount any of that. So I do want to preface by saying, I love you, internet. Thank you for being in my life. But the things I hate about you too, Helfer, is that the internet has allowed for your life to always be front and center. The internet has allowed for any and everything you do to be memorialized in perpetuity, so that any mistake, it never forgets. You know what? I said this to myself. If credit reports were like the internet, most people would never be able to afford anything, because there would be no progression of time to show that you've become a better person. There would be nothing that you could do, nothing to erase the fact of what you did before it. There would be no logical reasoning for people to see that you're not the same person you were at 12, 14, 18, 20, 25, 30. Because the internet makes everything as if it just happened by pressing a key and looking up what you did, even though it'll give you the date. Oh, well, In 2001, they got a speeding ticket. Now, mind you, that was 15 years ago. But in 2016, I don't like to date these things, but 15 years later, well, you know you got a speeding ticket. You horrible driver, you. No, you can't teach my kids at school. No job for you. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's crazy. So I want to talk about this black plague of today called unforgiveness. And one of the byproducts of the internet, and I'm not going to say it's just the internet, I'm not. But the internet has allowed people to do their own personal vetting, their own personal background checks. And I'll say this, having come out of corporate America and having to have dealt with a lot of corporate lawyers, I learned that vetting is very subjective. Even with my experience in human resources, very objective. Where one person can do the same thing as another, it's just a matter of how you decide to view it, frame it, and interpret it. And so when you have your average Joe Blow that can go and get everything that ever happened to you, any place you've ever lived, any thing you've ever said in stupidity, immaturity, they can use it against you, or they can rationalize it. And you never know which way it's going to swing because of the capricious nature of humanity. One person can do it and get away with it, and everybody's like, oh, that's just them being them. Another person can do it and be like, burn them down. And so therefore it has made for a societal problem of unforgiveness and never really, and I don't want to say you have to forget anything, but I do want to say you have to employ mercy. And so that's what I'm going to say. And I mean, and I'm actually still processing this right now while I'm talking about it, that this unforgiveness, this plague, has doused our ability to employ grace and mercy to people. I look at how there is a insidious plot, because that's how my mind works as a storyteller, out to get the world to set us back into the dark ages, where things like Inquisition. So things like the Inquisition could have happened, or things like genocidal cleansing of the Nazi regime and all these things that happened, or the Great Scourge of the Salem witches, and all this craziness could happen again, because when you don't employ certain, I think, inalienable laws like redemption and forgiveness, you're bound to reap the harvest of these things where we become self-destructive. Now, I don't want this to become too heavy. So what I'm going to say is, for you guys listening out there, I challenge you to start questioning the authority that you give the internet in your life and in your lifestyle, because this really is about living an epic story lifestyle. And if you ingest so much, and that's been a big theme for me right now, am I interacting or simply ingesting? And I don't want to ingest something. I am not a parrot. I am not someone who's just going to ingest something just to parrot it back. I want to interact with it, and I want to have the freedom to interact with it the way I want. So I'm going to ask you to do the same. How much credibility and heft does what the internet says affect how you think and feel about people? Recently, there was a issue that I was dealing with as a therapist. It was new, and it was horrible when it was first coming out, and I dealt with a few people that were going through it, and I felt hamstringed. I didn't know what to do, and so I guess need to give that background. In that, I dealt with a few people in the beginning stages of revenge porn. JR, do you know what revenge porn is? You may or may not have.
You're the one that told me about it, actually. I learned it from you.
Oh, okay. Okay, so you guys, revenge porn is when somebody breaks up with somebody and they get a little pissy about it and they want them to bleed. And so they take their little sexy time pictures and they put them up on the internet. But not only do they put them up on the internet, they usually include personal information like a name, address, and phone number. And they have sites that were set up for this that were making a lot of money off of it. Now, I will say that over 90% of this is men doing it to women, but hey, it happens. And because, I'm sorry, 90% of the people are victims, is what I should say. Victims are women. They just recently had a case, and I know that I shouldn't rejoice as much as I did, but they had a case that this woman finally won against her ex-boyfriend who had done this to her for a settlement of $55 million for revenge porn. And they went after him and the sites. And it was kind of like the internet didn't win on that one. And the problem is that with revenge porn, because of how the internet is, it's like chasing a ghost. You can send all of the cease and desist letters you want, but it just takes one person who's not even a company to download that file and then repost it somewhere else for it to keep living in perpetuity because of how the internet is set up. Remember, the internet takes away space and time. So a lot of times you might be thinking that somebody just did something, and if someone decides to have removed the date that it happened, in their mind, legitimately, you did this yesterday or today. And so I was excited when I heard that this is one of the things that's happening. But then it got me to thinking that it's not enough for litigation to have to happen, because everybody is not willing, able, or emotionally stable enough to go through that, because her case had been going on for years. So my little small part that I can hopefully do in part of my epic story lifestyle journey is to ask whoever might be listening to this, JR, to ask yourself, what impact are you going to allow the internet to put on your life, on how you judge and think about others? Because I find myself, even though I've had all these different particular incidences to make me more aware of it, I have to sometimes stop myself from passing judgment on people because of what some stupid website said that got populated to all these other websites. Just because it's said a lot of times doesn't mean that it should have the impact that we give it. And I honestly believe that our political landscape, reason why it feels like kangaroo court a lot of times now, is because of how things can get out of hand on the internet. And so it comes back to, if you're going to live an epic story lifestyle, live it where you consider the fact that it might be good to forgive. It might even be good to forget some things. There is a reason why there is a concept of redemption. People can get past their mistakes. So much so that I see something happening now. At the time of this recording, there is a director, a young director that's come out. He's not that young. He's in his 30s. But he's got kids, a wife, mom, all this other stuff. And he was accused of doing something that was bad in his college years, which was, I'm guessing, like 15 years ago or something like that. And he was never convicted of it. But the person that it happened to, or supposedly happened to, committed suicide recently. So this man is going about his life, and because of the internet, he is putting out a new movie. He's on the press junket, and he can't even talk about this groundbreaking movie that's winning awards, because everybody wants to know about the allegations that, by the way, he was never convicted of, and they want him to answer for why the other person committed suicide.
Crazy.
Internet plague of unforgiveness. I just need to pause there for a moment, JR. What do you think about this?
Well, I'm starting to feel guilty. You want to know why? Because we haven't talked about it much, but I do have a real estate rental business, and we do not rent to people with a criminal history, even if it's back 20 years ago. And it's because the internet allows us to pick that up, and we are not being forgiving as maybe we should be.
Now, I'm going to say this. Don't be no fool. Because I've had rental properties as well, and to be honest with you, I use the same thing, and the reason why I did is not at the time it had nothing to do with the real estate. I mean, with the internet. It had to do with statistics that had been gathered about propensities for things, and so there are certain things that the internet will give you information on, but go with your gut.
Double standard, watch out. No, I'm with you. I'm with you.
But for things now, when I say criminal histories, I am talking about like the violent ones and those types of things. If the violent ones and the shady ones, like if you just have a problem
counterfeiting, what would you do?
That kind of stuff. No.
All right. I don't feel so bad anymore.
No. Because think about it from a psychological standpoint. Unless that person has shown a redemption, we're dealing with a moral issue more so than being continuously judged.
Yeah, good point.
Right? Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. I'm not trying to double judge it, but if somebody got on Twitter, like this is the kind of stuff I'm seeing. Somebody got on Twitter and you didn't like it and they said some horrible stuff. I mean, horrible stuff. And then they woke up the next morning and was like, "Oh my God, what did I do?" And somebody's like, "Dude, you smoked a blunt, watched a video show, and then went on a Twitter rant, and now your career is over."
Yikes.
That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. Do we have a real rehabilitation and redemption effort in place? I think we should, for people. And yes, as a woman of color, I even believe that is for some things. Like, for instance, somebody sent me a link to a lady who is, and I don't want to politicize anything, but she's mad because her organization just got classified as a hate group, and it has a catchy name. I'm not gonna give her publicity here. But it has a catchy name. But, when you do stuff like go on Facebook and everything you sign off on is like a Heil Hitler or something like that, and why you hate everybody and why you should just have a nation for your people and all of that you don't really expect people to look past. You can't do that today and then get mad when someone classifies your group as a hate group so that you can't get federal funding. I mean, it's crazy. Even if you have the word organization in the name, you cannot get the government to fund your neo-Nazi organization. It just does not work.
God.
So anyway,
crazy.
It is crazy. But I do want to appeal to I'm talking actually to the middle of the bell curve people here. I'm talking to your everyday Jane and Joes, and I want to challenge you to fight the poppy seed fields before the land of Oz called the internet. Don't fall down into the haze and illusion that having access to facts means that you understand the knowledge. And I did another show that talked about how we have to have a database and build our database. But that doesn't mean that it just needs to be crammed with craziness. I'm excited. I have something coming up. Actually, I think I'm going to be talking about it next week. That talks a little bit more about the difference between knowledge and facts. And to me, the internet gives you facts. It takes a discerning mind to turn or decipher what is just fact and what is key to getting a better understanding of a situation. And to me, that is where we come into a book we've been talking about that JR and I both read, and he actually gifted to me. Curious talks about how the internet fails us because you have all these facts at the tip of your fingers. But what the internet is doing is, instead of making us smarter, it is making us lazier because we're losing the ability to decipher the facts and what should be considered and what shouldn't be considered when forming opinions, thoughts, or even intelligence about stuff.
Love that one.
Yeah. And so that's just really been important. So for me, I'm going to say this because, it's just time. I am personally choosing to go back to the fact that redemption and forgiveness plays a big role in continued health. Biologically, we understand that when you have unforgiveness, it deteriorates the health of your cells so that when you reproduce them, you age faster. They've even tied it to possible cancers and tumors. And I am not going to allow my access to one of the things I love and have mixed feelings about, the internet, to cause me to live in a perpetual world of unforgiveness. I'm just not going to do it anymore. I'm going to use my brain. I'm going to relish the fact that I do have a lot of facts that I can easily get to the internet. And then I'm going to push past that to become a researcher like we all should be, with discernment to know what's fact and what's knowledge. So that's what I got to say about today.
Excellent. So, Michelle, what do you have coming up for us next time?
Well, I mentioned a little bit about it, and so I'm going to be talking about now. Listen to my title. Hopefully, it'll make some sense. But you got to come back and listen next week, y'all. So I'm going to be talking about where did I leave my keys, and why we don't understand. And I'm going to leave it at that. I'm not going to even explain. Where did I leave my keys? And why we don't understand. That's what I'm talking about next week. So you definitely want to come back, because I'm going to be talking about some really cool stuff, about some knowledge and understanding. And I'm going to be really challenging you guys. If you're living this epic story lifestyle, you got to have the right kind of keys, boo. You really do. Okay? So that's what I got. Looking
forward to it. So that's a wrap for another epic story lifestyle. Thank you for tuning in. And thank you, Michelle, as always, for sharing your insight with us.
All right, bye.
Hey, Michelle here again. If you like today's show, remember to go to iTunes and in the search bar, type Epic Story Lifestyle. And when you see me, hit that subscribe button. If you really like today's show, hey, come on, do me a solid by giving a rating and a review. If you've got questions, comments, or even show topics you'd like to hear me cover in the future, tell me about them when you leave that wonderful review. All right, my time is up and I thank you for yours. See you next time. Now go out, make some great decisions that give you that epic story lifestyle.
This is the podcastfactory.com.